everyone, we're making cinnamon rolls today and I love this recipe. What I like to do before mixing my ingredients is to measure them out to avoid any mistakes and to be able to check them off the list as I go. I've measured out the sugar and then I need to warm my milk to 110 degrees Fahrenheit before adding the yeast. Make sure to use bread flour. There's just something about it that makes the dough more tender once it's baked. So the milk is at 110 degrees Fahrenheit. What I forgot to do at this stage was to add a tablespoon of sugar. So I ended up having to redo the yeast bloom later because the yeast didn't bloom. So what I did before I measured out all of my ingredients was I boiled the russet potato, medium sized, with the skin on, and once it cooled, I peeled off the skin and then mashed it. It's best to use a ricer or potato masher just to get a fine mash so you don't end up with clumps of potato in your dough. Mix that into the butter with the sugar and egg, mix it well, and then using kosher salt, add that to your flour. We want to avoid harming the yeast bloom, and for some reason salt does that. So add that to your flour, mix it well, and it shouldn't bother the yeast once it's incorporated with the ingredients. So if you have a dough hook, use it. Unfortunately, I don't have one, but the paddle seems to be working well. So add 1/3 of the flour mixture to the butter, egg, potato, and sugar mixture, and then you'll add the bloomed yeast, and as you can see, the yeast has bloomed beautifully after adding 1 tablespoon of sugar. It just makes it really happy. I scrape down the sides of the bowl just to avoid any waste, and then I'll add the rest of the flour. Once all the flour is mixed in, you'll want to turn your speed up to medium-high, and you're going to let the standing mixer do the work for you. So for 15 minutes on medium-high speed on the standing mixer, let your dough get worked. While waiting for your dough to knead, make sure to grease the pan that you'll be using to bake your cinnamon rolls in. Make sure to get all the sides so nothing sticks. Before turning your dough out onto the surface, make sure to grease your bowl really well, all the sides, to avoid your dough sticking while it's rising. I used a big rubber spatula to scrape down the sides of the bowl to get the dough onto the surface, and I covered the surface with about a 1/4 cup of flour because, as you can see, the dough is quite sticky. And then I put a couple tablespoons of flour on top, folding the dough into itself, scooping from the bottom. What I'm doing there as well is incorporating more flour so that the dough is not so sticky. And then what I'll do is we'll turn the dough over, and with my hands I'll tuck it and make it into a tighter ball. And then we'll place it into the greased bowl, cover it with plastic, and then we're going to put that in a warm place for it to rise for 1 to 1.5 hours. To make the filling is quite simple. It's just light brown sugar, ground cinnamon, salt, unsalted butter, nutmeg, and optional raisins and walnuts. I just felt like it that day, so I added it. I ended up putting 2 tablespoons of cinnamon because I really enjoy the cinnamon flavor. You'll mix those really well, and then we're going to move on to rolling out the dough. To roll out your dough, make sure to spread some flour on your surface and a little bit on top of your dough so that your rolling pin doesn't stick to it. Stretch the dough out with your hands, and we're aiming for a 12 by 18 inch rectangle. Press the corners of your dough into your surface to keep it from shrinking. And then spread your butter across the top of the dough, leaving a 1-inch border. Your dough is either room temperature, or you can melt it and let it come to room temperature. Then spread your filling evenly on top. Again, raisins and walnuts are optional. Depends on how you're feeling that day. Then you're going to take the long end of your dough and roll it from there, making sure to keep it tucked and tight as possible. So we're going to need to cut this dough into 12 even pieces. So you'll cut it in half, then in quarters, and those quarters into thirds. Now the dough might be quite soft. If you want it to firm up, you can roll it onto some parchment paper, transfer it to a cookie sheet, and then put it in your refrigerator for about 15 minutes. You can also use a piece of dental floss. What you'll do is you'll put the dental floss under the dough, and then you'll bring them up to the top and crisscross it, and then pull them in opposite directions. And that will cut through the dough much easier, and you might not pinch the dough like I did because it was quite soft dealing with it. So put your dough into your baking dish and cover it with plastic wrap and foil, and then put it in your refrigerator. Now this recipe needs to be made the night before so that it can be made the next morning. It does have to rest for 8 hours before baking. So after taking it out of the refrigerator for 8 hours, you'll want to let it sit and rest at room temperature for an hour before baking. You'll want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees and bake for 30 to 35 minutes. To make the topping is really simple. You'll just need to make sure that your cream cheese has come to room temperature so that it can whip up really easily. And then you'll add your sugar, milk, and I prefer to use vanilla paste, and continue whipping until it is a smooth mixture, making sure to scrape down the sides. Once your cinnamon rolls come out of the oven, you can spread your topping, making sure to do so evenly and allowing it to go into all the little crevices on your cinnamon rolls. Serve and enjoy! Thank you for watching. If you liked it, please subscribe and follow me on Instagram at Dynabites International. And if you want the recipe, you can find a link to my recipe blog in the description below. Thanks again. Have a good day.